Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Divergent podcast. Last episode, I talked about the things that I really despise or hate about my ADHD. So I thought it would just be proper to then follow on with the things that I love about my ADHD, but not just mine. When I was writing down notes about what I wanted to say, I was actually envisioning the people I have around me that are ADHD. And I was just thinking of the traits that they all have and they display in different ways. And why I love them is because of these ADHD traits. So this isn't just focused to me. This is me actually thinking wider in terms of like what I love about ADHD in everyone. So the first trait that would come to mind with any ADHD person, including myself, is that their calmness in a crisis. You know, if I'm having an emergency or there is an emergency, I'm not going to call a neurotypical. I'm really not. And I think about situations that I've been in or my friends have been in, and it's almost like we were born for that moment. I mean, I always make the joke that we're just kind of walking around in an action movie that hasn't really started yet, but we're ready. Um, and I've just got so many examples. I mean, for me personally, I'll just throw out a few. This is just memories of where shit has hit the fan, and I have been in almost a euphoric calm. And I'm not saying that I need to be an ambulance chaser and I need these moments. I know that that's not healthy, but I'm just saying that when they do arise, shit, we can handle it. We can handle it. You know, can you send me to the supermarket with a list? No, I'll probably have an anxiety attack and leave and get all the ingredients wrong. But if it's a really random emergency crisis, no one's even saw this coming. Like, I'm a girl. So, one of the top stories that comes to mind of me being calm in a crisis, just because it happened in this room, is when one of my children was in a jolly jumper and they were quite young, and I had just gone into the room to go and get something, and by the time I came back they were unconscious and just a lifeless rag doll in the jolly jumper, and there was vomit all under them. And I mean, I can talk about this now quite detached because I've like processed it. You know, I'm not going to hold on to it because they're fine. But it was at the time it was quite like a shocking thing to witness. But anyway, it was just me and in the house, and I still remember like every probably step of just calmly getting them out, putting them on the floor, their eyes glazed over like a rag doll. I'll never forget it. And I didn't scream. I suddenly remembered that I was taught CPR on infants when I was about 12 or 13 years old at school. I don't know. It just came back to me, right? In terms of, you know, where you do the compressions, how many. Like, I don't know. It just came to me. And at the same time I'm doing this, I am, you know, getting my phone and I'm like, great, there isn't good coverage where we are, good cell phone coverage. But I'm just like, okay, this is more important first. And then I calmly grabbed them and walked up the hallway to get better signal. But like, I mean, if I had indoor cameras, I would have loved to have seen me in action because I was just like a robot, you know? It's just crazy that you know, everyday life, emotions get in my way. But when it is just absolutely, you know, critical life or death, robot, robot. And anyway, obviously it all turned out okay, and all the testing, and it just happened to be a freak accident, which is the story of my life. So yeah, would I ever use a jolly jumper again? No, I fucking didn't. And burnt it. But that's the shit that would happen to me, you know. But anyway, that's one example of, I didn't even know that I remembered CPR. I didn't even listen in school, you know. Apparently I did. Apparently it came back to me. Another one was same room actually. So much trauma. This isn't as bad, but I had the two kids, and this would have been over a year ago. One of them was in the bath that I was watching. The other one wanted 2-minute noodles, and I'm like, no, I can't do both. Just wait. And my son was like, okay, I wait. And, you know, I believed him. And granted, I didn't actually know that he knew how to operate a microwave. But anyway, I went back up to the bath. Here's me thinking, oh, my little boy said like he'll wait for me to make 2-minute noodles. And then I don't know how long it was, but maybe, like 10 minutes later, I just hear this screaming and crying. And you can differentiate between the different cries and screams that your kids do. This was like a mixture of pain and terror. And I'm like, oh no, what has happened? Because I actually thought maybe he'd fallen off a chair. Come down into the kitchen. The whole room is like flooded with like mustard gas, like plume of black, yellow, thick smoke. And he is just standing there absolutely terrified. And he's a boy that, nothing really scares him. Anyway, I quickly realized that he had put a whole pack of 2-minute noodles, just dry, just like shoved in the microwave. He'd actually put it on a 30-minute timer. I don't even know how to put it on a 30-minute timer, but he had. And yeah, it was up to like 9 minutes, and obviously caught fire just because of, the packaging, and it's yellow, right? And where our microwave was, and it was an emergency. So I've got one kid in the bath. She was old enough, but I'm a psycho about drowning. So that, And then this one has just tried, like, there's flames. And again, I just was like, I remember all that training from Backdraft, Backdraft the movie. Like, it just came back to me. Anyway, I got him out, sealed this off, told the other one to get out of the bath, because I couldn't deal with a fire and a drowning at the same time. So they were out, they were caught in a room, shut these doors off, then dealt with this electrical fire that was just growing and growing. And my eyes were just like, was like burning, right? Because it's like chemical fire. I didn't have the mask. I didn't have the proper safety gear with me. But it was just me in here. And opened all the windows, and then I realized that we didn't have an extinguisher, which is quite abnormally normal, I guess. You don't think about this stuff. And turned all the electricity off, and just had to assess the flames when I opened it, and did it slowly, removed the whole plate using like things. It was all like burning, had burnt through the wood. Luckily, none of the wood or anything had caught fire yet. It had just like made a hell of a mess, and it stank. Took it outside, and then that's when I'm like, I'm going to spray it with water now because I'm outside, like chemical fires. And then as soon as I did, it's like, psh, like went everywhere. And I'm like, yeah, that was from my backdraft training. I already knew that. I already knew not to do that. And again, that was another example of who am I? And that was actually the same day where I went to the supermarket later on, and I sat in the car and cried because I couldn't go in because it was overwhelming, because it was so peoply and I had to think of boring stuff, I mean, explain that. I'm just saying we're useful people. We're useful people in a crisis, and it doesn't happen all the time, unfortunately, because then we would show our skills. But that is probably one of my most favorite things. And I don't want to share the stories from my friends, but those would be just some of my top moments where I'm like, I don't even know who I am, but my memory recall for things like this is incredible, and I'm so calm and I'm so euphoric. And when it's over, I have this adrenaline high, and that's really fucked up, and I don't think it's normal, but I know that you know. Another favorite trait that I have for ADHD is the ability to think outside the box, or think. There is no box. There's no box to think in, out, around. There is no box. Limit does not exist. But every one of my friends has some kind of side hustle, some kind of entrepreneurial kind of vision or job, or invention, and they keep going and they're fixing issues that, no one else thinks of. And I just love watching it happen, and that is because our brains just can't be managed, kind of like Kanye. I never thought he was crazy, by the way, just saying. Um, I love that ability that we're just like free roaming brains, and it's a real shame to be in a school system or to be in a society where it's like, no, you must learn Pythagoras' theorem because it's useful. But I think that the ADHD brains or the neurodivergent brains are the ones that change things. And that's not just bias because I'm one. I mean, every person that I know is changing things and they're seeing problems and they're fixing things and they're finding niches. And I love that. I love that. And I hope, well, my dream is for that to be fostered more, you know? It really is. And that's the kind of thing you cannot teach people this skill. You cannot teach people to forget about the box and to think outside it and pretend it's not there. That is a born skill. So we're really fucking lucky we have that because you cannot teach that. Another trait that I love about my ADHD and others is our adventurous spirit. I mean, I have a smile just thinking about all the ridiculous stuff that I get up to with my friends or that I've done. We're so for the plot. We're never going to be dull. I mean, put me on a boat and I'll go on it and be like, do you know that we could climb up to the very, very top and then we could jump off the boat and then we could like land and try not break our neck? That would be fun. Like, that is how I go. It's just like I'll be in a setting and it's like, we could elevate this. Do you know that we could actually elevate this right now? And we're all doing it. And I love it. We're so adventurous. I love our last minute kind of impulsive ideas. Some of them lead us down to bad tracks, but that means you've got a good story. But a lot of the time, they're really funny stories. And I think that we are all living life. I really do. I think the ADHDers are the ones that live life. We're always the ones at like a dinner party or something. We've always got the stories and we actually forget most of them because, you just have so many of them. And I think when you run into kind of like quite beige brigade, they're just kind of like fascinated with you, at like breaking the rules or just doing things. And we're just like, oh, that was just another Tuesday for us. But I love that. I never get bored with my ADHD friends. And that includes conversations. I notice that if I'm in a conversation, if I have to endure something like, I don't know, where I have to be around normal people and I have to mask, I get to a point where I like get really silly and I'm like, oh gosh, I'm going to start making up lies and saying silly things and like inventing a new identity. And that's because I'm bored. And I know that we do that. But when I'm with another ADHD, like, it's honestly like we're both playing, pinball and we just can't catch each other's bloody ideas. And it's like zoom, 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 zoom. And because you're trying to keep up with each other, you don't have time to invent a new identity. You don't have time to make up lies because you're having fun. You're having like a verbal like volley. I love it. And that ties into just the whole adventurous, fun-loving, impulsive spirit. I love that trait in us, guys. I really love it. I mean, I know that it can get dampened and it can get dismissed, but I'm just saying that don't, don't, don't dim it. I think that when you get around your own kind and you can just feed off each other and you realize how brilliantly funny we are. I love that. I love that trait about ADHD. Again, you either are born with it or you're not. Another one of my favorite traits, which is probably my favorite trait myself, is the level of intuition and discernment. And I have learned to really lean into it and foster it and harness it. And that is after 35 years of being told by society or whoever that you're too sensitive, you're overthinking it, you're paranoid, blah, blah, blah. No, we're actually always right. It's because people will say that because they actually don't want to own up to the truth. We pick up the vibes, we pick up the energy, we pick up the micro expressions, we pick up when people are lying. That confuses us, right? When the words and the energy don't match and we say something, well, of course, like the only option is to gaslight someone, right? That's what you do. And it can be on such a minor scale, but when you've gone through a whole lifetime of being told that, it can really mess up kind of your self belief or trust in your judgment. And that is such a lot to unpack and, fucking unravel. But now I am so confident in my own judgment and my own ability to see through bullshit. And I now make a decision internally about whether it's going to benefit me saying something about it, because usually when people are not being honest or their actions aren't matching their words, usually they're not the type of people that it's even worth bringing that up. Like, hey, are you okay? Like we're not here to waste words. Like if I ask someone, are you okay? I'm not like here to fuck spiders. I'm asking, are you okay? I'm fine. I'm fine. I don't want to have to ask you 20 times, I've actually got other things to be thinking of, like fires in the microwave. But that's what it is. I now look at someone, and not that I hang around many inauthentic people these days, but I always judge like, is this even worth my time? Because I don't want to get in an argument. I don't want to be manipulated. I don't want to be gaslit. I don't want to be led down the maze of the overthinking, paranoia, turning deflection, projection onto me. So while I love like saying my truth and saying my piece, I realize that that was really exhausting when you've got an audience that is not going to receive it. And instead, I laugh to myself inside and I just act like I'm dumb and I go along with it. But secretly, I've already made the note that I don't trust you and you will never know it. But in just drawing that back in general, I know that all ADHD people or neurodivergent, whatever you want to say, we all have the intuition. We all have the antenna that like just picks up on the vibes, on the energy, read the room. And it's a real shame because so many of us have been made to feel that we can't trust it, right? And fuck, where has that led us? Down the wrong path, right? Because if there's anything I've learned is that a lot of normal people don't actually say what they mean and mean what they say. And that is what actually screws us up. So now I fully lean into it. And if someone gets argumentative or defensive or upset or over explains, I just think, gotcha. But it is. If there's anything I would say about that, and I know that there are a lot of us that, we're just beginning the journey and you talk about intuition, but I'm telling you, like, as time goes on and you just keep leaning into it, and then you almost keep a tally of like, oh, I was right. I was right again. I was right again. Maybe I was always fucking right, Then you can just be infallible and nothing will waver you on that. And when you can get a hold of that, God, that's a superpower, and learning to just use it to your advantage, I don't have to call people out if it's going to cause me a headache, and that's how you should treat it too. Another trait that I love about us is just our grit and determination and the fact that we never give up. We never give up because we are the underdogs. We are the ones that we get a million things wrong every single day, right? But do we still get up? Sometimes we don't want to, but we still get up and we're like, no, I'm going to try it again. I'm going to try it again. Or, this business failed. I know I've tried a lot of businesses, but this is different. This is going to work, or this relationship's going to work. I know I've had a lot of failed relationships. I'm going to do this one. We actually I don't know if it's because our memory gets wiped from all the trauma we go through, but we never give up. And I fucking love that. I fucking love that. I usually can spot other ADHDers by their absolute determination. They never stay down. They never stay down. They might have a little crash out, but they always get up and just run at the brick wall again. And I love that. And I'm the same, So many things where, I've failed. I've learnt lessons. The hard way, because you got to live and learn. But, I love that we're always evolving. That's what I like to think of. You look at an ADHDer's work history or their CV, and it might be 18 months, new job, new career, new vocation, but it makes sense to me. And that to me is evolution. And I know that it's not really encouraged. It's encouraged to be oh, you stayed at a job for 20 years. You were so reliable. You were amazing. I mean, okay, I don't run a corporation, but if I saw that, I'd be undercooked, under-evolved. You haven't even grown. I just love that all of us are constantly evolving. I mean, I have to keep up with my friends' evolutions because, they'll be on some new vocation or new career. They're learning something new. And it's oh my gosh, wow. We're, again, living life. And I love that because, yeah, we could have failed at that, but we're going to try it at that and we're going to go 100 or nothing. And again, I don't think that's something that you can really teach. You're just kind of born with, the underdog kind of stuff. Another one of my favorite traits is, and I guess it's the cliche word, authenticity. But I'm sorry, I feel like the ADHDers are the ones that actually live authenticity and are authenticity, not authenticity. And I love that. You get the no frills, the cut to the chase, no BS, no small talk. They're just real. And there's no kind of filter. I mean, I know I don't have one. I mean, I use it for certain scenarios, but in general, I mean, we just shoot straight from the hip, and there's no mucking around. And I love that because it's not exhausting. If I go on and meet someone in the ADHD, it's so easy. You can just get right into it. It's just, there's not this weird, awkward, formal, basic little polite dance that you have to do. And I know that my friends, that I can ask them a question and they'll tell me a straight answer, not because they're going to be mean to me either. It's just, they'll tell me, Selena, shut the fuck up. I need to finish my sentence. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'll be saying it back to you. But, I love that. I love that. And there's no malice. There's no meanness. And other people can take our behavior as shocking or rude or blunt, but we're just not here to fluff. We're not fluffing. We're not fluffing the pillows. We're actually here to do a job. Many jobs. We don't know what the jobs are. We'll change jobs. But I'm just saying that, we're not here to muck around. And I love that. I love that. I love talking to any ADHD and it's just to the point. To the point. Give it to you real. You're not wondering about what they think of you because they would tell you or you would see it in their face, and that to me is just refreshing. It's refreshing. It's a load off. It's relaxing. And I can see why we actually all are drawn to each other. And it's funny after you get diagnosed and then you go out into the world and then you look at some of your friends and you're like, oh, I'm not going to tell you yet, but I think that's why we're friends. And yeah, we flock together. Another one of my favorite traits of ADHD is our compassion and our non-judgment. That whole trend, it's we listen and we don't judge. We don't listen and we don't judge. But I'm just saying that it's funny, I only talk about probably anything in my life really, shameful, non-shameful, to an ADHDer, because their face is just like they don't even bat an eyelid, it's just they've either done the same, they've done worse, or they would completely sympathize and empathize with you. And when you have been a person that has always been judged by the world, I think you have a mindset where you really protect others from being judged because you know how that feels. And so that is how we reciprocate. We don't judge each other. It's really shitty, by the way, when you offer that kind of kindness to neurotypicals and then they judge the fuck out of you back, you know? But I'm just saying that I love it. I know that my friends are like my diaries in a way. I could ring them and tell them something and be like, oh my God, I feel really bad. And it's not like they're going to be like, that's fine. But it's just like they just understand how it's manifested, or they've done something worse. And sometimes you just need to feel that you're just not the only bad person on the planet. And we're all just kind of doing this stuff, right? We're all feeling like we're in trouble every second of the day. And just the kind-heartedness and the compassion and the non-judgment. And I really think that just ties back to living a life where you have always been judged. So you don't want to pass it on to other people. That's what I've realized. Another favorite trait is the 100 or nothing mindset, which ties into hyperfocus. So that's either being on or off. And while it can be quite frustrating, we're more sprinters than marathon runners. The kind of attention and detail we bring to something when we're on, and you won't go bathroom, you won't eat, you won't shower, you won't sleep, like you were just so intensely focused on something. Again, that is something that you are born with, or you're not, or you're on meth, probably, But I'm just saying that that is where like the magic happens. And yes, I know that that leads to burnout, and it's a bit of a cycle for us. And it can be quite frustrating when, you feel like sometimes you can't pick the moments where you want to have the hyper focus or when it will happen. But there has to be, another side to the coin. And when it does happen, I mean, that is where the brilliance happens, it really does. I can think of so many times that my hyper focus has really saved my ass. For example, solving my daughter's medical mystery. That was a really long hyper focus hole. I did have to sleep during that, but I'm pretty sure I lost bloody years off my life figuring that one out. We're like dogs with a bone, like we will not let it go. And once it's done, it will be the best of our ability. We've poured everything into it. We can't just show up to something and just be average and just be mediocre. It's brilliant or bad, brilliant or really bad. And that's kind of interesting. You don't know what you're going to land on the day. Frustrating, I know. But I think maybe because I am quite comfortable and I can lean into this whole ADHD thing now, because I can't fight it. I can't fight it. I haven't figured it out. I'm not a genius, but I do think I've got some smarts and I haven't figured it out. So there's one option really, and that is just to go with it and make it work for you. And just, yeah, when you have your bad times or you don't, measure up, like, well, thank God we've got lots of grit and resilience and we just get up and do it again. Otherwise we wouldn't be who we are. But yeah, I love when I hear of my friends in hyper focus hole. Well, I don't even hear from them because they're in the hyper focus hole, but they will be producing magic. And that is definitely a star trait of ADHD. Okay, this one is probably a little personal favorite of mine. It lives with me. I used to just kind of try and deny it, but I'm like, no, this is a part of me. It lives with me. It comes with me. I just decide when that side's going to take over, and that is injustice, sensitivity. And I don't know if it's just because of the whole lawyer thing or being a Libra, but but like, and then also being ADHD. But there is nothing that gets me up in the morning than the smell of a dog fight, an underdog fight especially. I just love it. And I've learnt lessons along the way in terms of picking the right fights or picking the right battles, because it's exhausting when you're fighting a lot of battles, especially when they're not even your battles, because usually they aren't our battles, right? We stick up for people, and I think it's because that comes down to maybe this desire of wishing someone had stuck up for us when we were belittled or we were treated badly. So it's like we almost take this on, like, no, we are the freedom fighters. And I love that about us. And it's hard when it's just you. I know we're all doing it. We're all separated. But if you just if you just happen to kind of join up with one and you're on the same mission, that's fun too. A joint mission, a joint justice mission, that's even better. But I don't know, it gives us so much dopamine, right? It does. And I feel like we just don't like bad people. We've got like a moral code that we're born with. We don't like hypocrites. We don't like fake people. We don't like liars. We don't like bad people. And I feel that if someone's bad, well, then they need to be punished by us. I don't know what it is. I know it's not just a me thing. And I love that about us. Someone has to. Gosh, someone has to do it. It's hard when you feel like you're the only one fighting a battle, but I wish there needs to be like a little group where we could just swap our battles, because we might align, maybe we're fighting the same battle, the same kind of like organization or government body, you never know. But I love that. We're fiery, we're feisty, and we just want to stand up for what's right, even if it means it will be to our detriment. It's this whole thing, like, I will even say this, I will always die on my feet than on my knees, ever, ever. I will never, ever, ever put my head down and be like, no, I'm not going to do that. I mean, the whole reason I'm doing this podcast and this Instagram, the whole driving force, taking it back, is because I looked at my daughter and my son, and really, well, my daughter is me. She is mini me. And she's going through the whole masking and just her thought processes, internalizing things. She's me. And I look at the world, I'm like, it hasn't changed. We're not on a place yet of accepting neurodivergence, which I think is absolutely bizarre. But anywho, and my thought process is, okay, well, masking led me to self-hatred, self-esteem problems, people pleasing, being around the wrong people that were using you, not trusting your own judgment, having no confidence, and basically you're stuck in a web, right? And then you almost know deep down in your body that things aren't right, but everyone's telling you you're paranoid, you're like, you can't ever do this, you can't do that, you're anxious, you can't do that. And it makes you sick. And then what do you do with that when you just like hate yourself because you feel like you just can't measure up and you can't do this and you can't do that? Well, you numb it and you disassociate and you go onto substances or alcohol or overspending, or you get into more fights, or you go to prison. Honestly, like, that to me is so like the logical step, right? And so the only way that I can see, I've thought about this, the only way that I can see to alleviate, try and change some of that trajectory, is acceptance and normalizing. That's the only way, because we cannot change who we are, even when we're medicated. I've tried that, that didn't work. So there's one option, really. It's hate yourself and then go down that route, or love yourself. But it's hard to love yourself when everyone is giving you negative feedback. So therefore, I need to change the environment, or I need to change the context in which my kids and other kids are growing up in. And who am I? Just a no one, really. But will I die trying? Yeah. I'll die on my feet before I ever go on my knees. I'm just saying. That is the pure example of stuff that we will do for the greater good, And when you have like a dying passion like that, that nothing will ever stop it. So you can, go out on social media and embarrass yourself and worry about what your old friends are going to say, but it's just quite liberating. Like, no, fuck it, because I'm doing this, and that's what we like, and I love that. And that also ties into another trait that I love about us, and that is the oppositional defiance. And that's kind of a bit like, no, I'm not doing that because you told me so. I'll do it in 5 minutes. And I kind of love it because it's kind of humorous, and I do it all the time. I will do it on my own time, which might be in a minute, but it's this whole thing of like, you're not the boss of me. Even my brain isn't the boss of me. You think you can come in? I don't think so. And I love it because it's just, just like little children sometimes. But again, sometimes there is learning just to play the game and just do it. But other times, like, it's fun to cause a little, like, stamp your feet and do it in a minute, And it's like we're like these rebels, but we always have cause. There's always cause. It just might not be apparent to everyone else. I love that. I love hearing from my friends and just hearing about like who has slighted them, who has pissed them off, and then they've just made it their whole day's mission to, find out everything about them to try ruin their life. I can't say I've ever done that. Nope, have not. So another favorite trait is our sense of humor, which again, you absolutely are born with it. I don't know what it is, but I watch my daughter and she's still, as long as I can remember, she has always had this real like morbid, deadpan, dark, really witty, not politically correct, but real humor. And I promise you, I've not taught her these lines. Actually, I haven't, because she cracks me up more than I crack her up. We've got this inbuilt sense of humor, and that's another way that I can tell us in the wild, because there'll be some real like inappropriate but bang on joke. I mean, for example, I'm just thinking of some of the stuff my daughter says. She'll just, it's quite logical, but I remember, every time it's Easter, I haven't been able to answer this question, but she'll be like, why is it called Good Friday if Jesus died? And I'm like, I don't know, but that's a good question. I'm asked it every year and I still don't know. And it makes sense, and we have these conversations. I'm like, that we can like chat like this, but maybe don't do that at school because they're not as funny as us, so they don't find it funny. But just the conversations are, there'll be like quite a lot of like death or morbidity. And I was the same, and just joking about it. And some people find that really insensitive, or they get really offended. That's tricky. But I've noticed that I was like that from a child, and my daughter is like that. So maybe it is like an inbuilt thing. I don't know. I mean, I remember, talking to her saying that, I love you so much, I hope that we die at the same time. And I'm like, well, that might not happen, I didn't want to like set her up to fail. And she's like, yeah, I suppose if you die first and then I die second. And I said, yeah, I'll see you there. I'll see you then. She goes, no, I'd fly down to hell and see you and visit you. Like deadpan. She's already decided I'm going to hell. And it was brilliant. But I'm like, gee. She was like 5, mind you. I don't know what that says about my future, but, like, thinks of that stuff. And we'll go to the beach and, kids are making sandcastles. My kids are digging graves. They're playing funerals, and granted, there's a cemetery around here, but we don't watch that stuff. It's like, they love it. Her favourite show is Wednesday Addams, and it was the same as me. I love the Addams Family. And, they're burying each other in the sand playing funerals, and they think it's really funny. And so do I. But we have this different kind of humour, and I don't know what it is. I'd love to, I want to know the answer to that actually, because how does it get us so young? I'm not sure, but I love it. I love that I can just make the most unhinged, just out the gate kind of jokes and receive them. And I'm like, gosh, we're so dark. Our humour is so dark, but it keeps us alive, if you know what I mean. And look, there are so many traits that I love about ADHD, but I'm just picking out some of my top favourites, and I'm going to end on this one, and that is info dumping. And I know that the neurotypicals don't like or understand the info dump until they really need it. Like, their kid is sick or something, then they want your info dump. But I love info dumps. I actually encourage them. I encourage my friends that have interests in very, very, very different topics, and they'll be reading books or listening to podcasts. And I always say to them, if you find something like fascinating and you're really excited to talk to someone about it, like, can you just leave me an info dump? Because it's like, I've just outsourced some kind of research, and I love hearing the excitement in their voices, and I know I do it too. And it's like, oh my God. And then in a week, it's like, oh, I can't believe I got excited about that. Like, But I used to do that all the time. I would just get on a train of thought, not knowing I was doing this, mind you. And I would just send people like links and articles. And it was, I think one time I was on this hypnotism bandwagon, and about saying certain things in your brain when you're in delta alpha waves or something, and then it will change your life. And I just was like spamming people. And now I know what that was. And I look back, it's like, yeah, that's not that exciting, but it was that exciting at the time. And I don't care what anyone says. Info dumps are the way of the future, and I love receiving them. I now only give info dumps to people that deserve the info dump. I actually don't do unwarranted ones now. I don't know why. I actually don't have the fucking time. But if someone mentions to me that they may need information on an area that I happen to be skilled at, I'll kind of say, well, I do know something about this. And then if I get the okay, then it's brrr, and then it's like, there you go. Like, it's like a love language. Like, I've just saved you months. And I love that. And people, neurotypicals or normies get really like, whoa. Yeah, but the thing is, it's called an info dump for a reason. It's not dumps. It's one dump, okay? It's hot, heavy, it's out. Again, it goes the whole, we don't do like average, mediocre, consistent. It's big. It's a lot to handle, but it's done. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. I hope that you liked listening to some of these. Honestly, there are so many traits I love about us, and I know that there are a lot of trials and tribulations about having our brains, but when I was writing down the list of what I loved, gosh, it was so much longer than the list of things that I didn't like about ADHD. So sometimes it's just good to remind yourself of things like this. Even if the world doesn't agree, don't let the bastards get you down. Okay,